Welcome to the Bolt Report. I'm Rita Panahy, filling in for Andrew Bolt. We have a superb hour coming up for you, including the brilliant Brendan O'Neill on UK's Freedom Day, the Monday panel, including Michael Kroger and Michael Costa. They've got some strong thoughts about the Prime Minister's plummeting popularity rate, and also whether British firebrand Katie Hopkins should have had her visa cancelled. And I'll also be speaking to a comedian about COVID comedy and the rise of a TikTok comic with an impeccable source at New South Wales Health who consistently beats the media in reporting the daily COVID numbers. Here he was on Friday night.
157.
Did you factor in all the granny flats in southwest Sydney? Give me the pen. Give me the pen.
Take a look at this. Look, if we go in squared. Okay.
There'll be 111 cases tomorrow in Sydney.
And here is Premier Gladys Berejiklian on Saturday morning, some 10-12 hours later.
We had 111 cases of community transmission.
And it wasn't a one-off. This is the following day.
What are your thoughts on the K-Ruse probability theorem to predict new cases?
It is great math. You are a true genius. You and your brothers have brilliant minds.
You've used the formula yourself. How many cases are there going to be tomorrow, Stephen?
It was not easy, John, but I have concluded that there will be 105 cases.
Ah, well, I got the same answer as well. So there you have it, guys. 105 new cases tomorrow. I'll see you then.
And this is the next day. Well, we don't have the next day. Well, trust me, Gladys Berejiklian got up and confirmed that number. But it seems the impeccable source has faltered. We'll take a look at all that a little bit later in the program. But first to the ruinous eradication strategy, the COVID zero fantasy that is keeping Australia a prison island and will keep us a prison island indefinitely, unless we fundamentally shift our mindset. We are never getting out of this self-inflicted lunacy without accepting the reality that COVID-19 will be endemic. Even when we reach a vaccination rate of 70% of the adult population, that's well above what the US and UK have right now, even when we reach that milestone, we will still not be able to fully open the country unless we accept that there'll be coronavirus cases, community spread, hospitalisations and some deaths as there are every year due to the flu. That is the reality that no politician from the Prime Minister down will address. Instead, they have all joined the eradication cult, including Gladys Berejiklian. As for Victoria, this latest lockdown was never going to end in 5 days. Dan Andrews revealed the worst-kept secret in Victoria during today's press conference when he confirmed that Lockdown 5 will not end tomorrow night. We don't know the length or the precise details of the lockdown extension, but stay-at-home orders will continue beyond the 5-day circuit breaker we were promised last week. So much for the Premier's claim that you only get one chance to go hard and go fast to prevent a longer lockdown. Premier Andrews and the state's Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, appeared to contradict each other during today's press conference on whether Victoria is seeking to eradicate the virus and achieve COVID zero. Here is the Premier.
You get to the point where you're not locking down to get to zero, you're locking down to ensure that your hospitals aren't overwhelmed. They're two very different things.
And here is the Chief Health Officer.
We have to drive this variant down to zero. We do not want a Delta variant established in the community with ongoing transmission that will do more damage to all of our activities, including schooling, if we allow it to run. That's why we are working so very hard to snuff it out now.
One change that should be announced tomorrow is that the lockdown extension won't include school closures. Children have paid a very high price for a virus that disproportionately impacts the very old, the very ill, and the morbidly obese, all of whom have had around 5 months to get vaccinated. And nowhere in Australia have children paid a higher price than in Victoria, with more than 24 weeks of school closures. 24 weeks, that's more than twice as long as the next nearest state. West Australia, South Australia and the Northern Territory have had students miss only 1 week of school. It is unconscionable to inflict further harm on young Australians in the name of COVID-19 safety, given that successive studies have shown that influenza is more dangerous for children than coronavirus. Premier Andrews said today, schools won't be closed longer than they need to be. They don't need to be closed now, Premier. Not if you listen to the health advice of renowned infectious disease experts, instead of your catastrophist Chief Health Officer. Brett Sutton's hyperbole is nothing new, from his false claims that iCook Foods was the source of a serious listeria outbreak which could kill thousands of people, a claim that some say helped destroy that thriving business. And then there's Sutton's writing, claiming things like the current climate emergency is the single greatest threat to global health into the future. Seriously. The latest research, the most comprehensive to date, shows that children are at even lower risk of COVID-19 than previously thought, with a 99.995% survival rate. 99.995%. Scientists from University College London and the Universities of York, Bristol and Liverpool found that the risk of illness and death for children was minuscule. The UK has one of the world's highest COVID death rates, but of the more than 152,000 deaths, only 25 were under 18. And researchers have confirmed that almost all of them had serious underlying health issues, including life-limiting conditions and complex neurodisabilities. There is no justifiable reason to keep children away from school when there is so little upside and plenty of down. Paediatric infectious disease specialists Dr. Benjamin Lee and Dr. William Raskvar, writing in the Journal of the American Academy of Pediatrics last year, concluded that schools should be open because it will minimise the potentially profound adverse social, developmental and health costs that our children will continue to suffer. Then there's the data from Sweden, which never closed schools for young children and did not force children to wear masks. And yet, there was no enormous surge in infections in children, and the country had similar infection levels in students as neighbouring Finland, which closed schools. We need to have kids back in school, both in New South Wales and Victoria. Former Australian Deputy Chief Medical Officer Nick Coatsworth, who's also an infectious disease expert, which is more than you can say for some Chief Health Officers, wrote in May, COVID-19 is not the flu. Far fewer children are affected by COVID-19 and the number of transmissions from children to adults is far less. We need to trust the evidence that says it is safe for our schools to be taught, safe for our children to be taught at school. The argument that Delta is a game changer is not borne out by the evidence. Yes, Delta is certainly far more infectious, but it has proven to be significantly less virulent so far. Premier Andrews claims that he is locking down the state to save the hospital system. But that's a nonsense when you look at the experience overseas. Absolute nonsense. And it's worth noting that in an average year, we have over 400,000 hospitalisations due to infections of communicable diseases. We had around 447,000 hospitalisations in 2018 alone. That's according to the government's own data. We don't shut schools, businesses and entire states to reduce infections and hospitalisations. Students need to be back in school. One can easily implement measures to minimise contact between parents during school pickups and drop-offs and get children back in the classroom this week. On a broader level, this COVID zero fantasy is unsustainable and costly. We now have 75% of Australians over the age of 70 vaccinated with at least one jab. We need to move forward with a proportional response to COVID-19. It was only earlier this month that Scott Morrison, along with every other state and territory leader, pledged that lockdowns will be used only as a last resort. That national cabinet commitment was made on July 2. But like so many other commitments from national cabinet, it has proved to be a big, fat joke. And to talk about the adverse social, developmental and health costs our children may pay in the future, I'm joined by child psychologist Claire Rowe. Claire, thank you so much for your time tonight. The welfare of children affected by lockdowns, it's been a topic of discussion. We've had people express their concerns, but it seems the state governments just opt for the easy option, and the easy option seems to be close everything, close the schools.
Yeah, thanks, Rita, and thanks for that great editorial for children, because when we talk about kind of the National Cabinet and the decisions that they're making with lockdown, and it seems to be, as people are saying, just the health advice that people are going. There's no economic advice weighed up, and there's no advice on, I'd love someone flying the flag for children and education to be there. There is no evidence. I mean, Gladys Berejiklian did say multiple times in one of those press conferences, schools are safe, schools are safe. And she seemed to rely on the fact that she didn't want the movement of adults seeing each other. Well, I'm a parent, and, our drop-off system has been pretty clear now for the last 12 months, and I haven't come into contact with any other adults on drop-off. Schools have this stuff down pat. So I really don't buy that on balance. And that's what we have to come to. On balance, what is the impact here on our children? And I think, obviously it's the mental health and academic and educational costs. And in some ways they're intertwined there. We were predicting, the mental health disasters for children come the first lockdowns in March last year, and they were predictions, and they evidently were coming true. But what I'm seeing playing out now is this kind of daily demise of I see of the teenagers at the moment. I had a couple of kids' parents ring up today and have to cancel their sessions with me because they couldn't afford it, because they had lost their jobs, because they were small business owners. Their adolescent, they feared, will then not get psychological and mental health support from someone like me. I had another client ring up and say, well, I don't think I can get my adolescent to you because we're in the Fairfield area and in this hotspot of Sydney. The response to me when I try and ring COVID advice lines is that we should be doing that by telehealth. Well, a 12-year-old, it's not the same with a 12-year-old trying to engage them in telehealth. And when you ask, parents are asking them what they want to come and see their psychologist for assistance. So it's putting on some really hard decisions on clinical psychs like myself at the moment, Rita, working with kids and how we navigate this. But more and more, I'm worried about the education side of things, because I think, there is an element of year one, year two, all right, you've got another 12 years ahead of you of schooling, a couple of weeks off ain't going to make a difference. I think we're at that tipping point now, and I think we're at the tipping point where we're talking about early intervention for phonetics and reading for 6, 7, 8-year-olds. 24 weeks off, that's crucial. That is kind of a game changer, I think, in terms of academics.
Oh, absolutely. There's the academic progress, there's the mental health issues, there's the not having that support system, and the kids are missing out on their childhood, and that's another thing. We say, oh, they're kids, they'll be fine, but you're only a kid once, and you only experience these golden years once. What sort of stresses, or what sort of mental health issues are you seeing in the children that you're treating? Are they coping with the lockdown? Have they got anxiety about all the news they're seeing and their parents going through financial hardship? What's been the experience there?
Yeah, well, I think last year I was seeing more anxiety in children when we weren't really sure about COVID and we didn't have as much information. I think there's a real change this year, what I'm seeing, and I'm seeing much more of a depressive state in children. So basically, what we're asking people to do who maybe before COVID were psychologically, this goes for adults as well, psychologically robust, people. We're asking them to stay inside, not have any social contact, reduce their physical movement, essentially because of working from home, be on screens all day. We're essentially taking away any protective factors and behaviours that we as psychologists know prevent things like depressive states. So when you artificially induce that on someone, particularly a teenager, for long periods of time, I mean, we've got teenagers that, in previous COVID times, we were encouraged to get out of their bedroom and go and see your friends and get outside because we know that's good and get off your screen. I've now got teenagers just stuck in their dark room with the curtain closed on their screen all day and turning around saying, well, that's what I've got to do. And to a degree, parents who are then trying to work from home and the stress that brings and financial stress, kind of saying, I don't have the time and energy to fight that right now. So I've kind of let them go. And so I'm seeing these family structures just unravel. And the effects I'm seeing is real flat, withdrawn, helplessness, depressed states.
Oh, that's not good. And we are seeing some data that's showing some really dramatic jumps in teen suicide attempts and self-harm. One report out of Victoria says emergency interventions to protect young people from suicide and child abuse have skyrocketed by 184% over a 6-month period, as of course Victoria is now up to lockdown 5. That's frightening numbers. That data's from Kids Helpline. How many kids are falling through the cracks? The lucky ones have parents who bring them to a professional like you to give them help. But what about the kids whose parents can't render any sort of assistance, who have their own mental health issues to deal with?
Well, exactly. I don't know, Rita. I suspect there'd be a lot of kids falling through the cracks at the moment. The other concern for me, of course, is that, again, pre-COVID times, what was the number one concern with teenagers, with professionals like myself, was social media? Well, all I'm seeing at the moment is 8 to 12 plus hours a day on social media. And what we're seeing is, inappropriate content enabling, I would say, verging on encouraging self-harm. And this is what our kids are looking at and the content they're looking at. And when they're looking at it for
they're looking at self-harm videos. Is there content where people are telling them how to self-harm?
Yeah, there's certainly ones that allude to it, and there's certainly ones that, I personally would say encourage it, but certainly they're kind of reaching out, enabling, telling people it's okay. And this is what vulnerable young people are watching. And it's not just that they're watching it and then they're getting out into the real world. They're watching it in their bedrooms alone, hour after hour after hour. And so, I mean, that whole thing is frightening. But yes, I mean, I've seen self-harm rates skyrocket in the last 12 months. And really what these kids need is to get out of that house, get back into the routine, get back on the footy field, get back into the dance classes, get back, out into the fresh air and get some routine and regularity back in your life, and then get some perspective. And look, the youth of today get a bad rap sometimes, even off myself, and, about being a resilient bunch. At the moment, they are feeling pretty hopeless and helpless. And this is the generation, don't forget, that, 18 months ago were in tears because they thought the world was going to end from global warming. And that was what I was dealing with 18 months ago, of that helplessness. And now we're in this helplessness of we're kind of shut inside the house. So I do feel for these kids. They are, they do have a somewhat, difficult couple of years they've had to navigate. And, I think, I agree with everything you said in that editorial. I think schools need to be reopened ASAP. Parents are asking me regularly, can I send them? Now, that's a tricky question because, they are open for essential workers for their children. I have been told by teachers that they are under strict instructions not to teach those children that come in. Do not teach those children.
Yes.
Because they will be at a disadvantage.
They put them in a room.
So you are there just to mind them. just to mind them. So, and teachers, I mean, I spoke to a teacher this week who threw her hands up and said, I can't do that. I'm a teacher. I want to teach. But I understand that's a disadvantage now for the rest of my class who are stuck at home. So they have been strictly told, teachers, you are simply babysitters just to mind those children that are in there. But, you know, parents also need the break and would like to send them. So, yeah, it's a tough call.
Absolutely. Claire, thank you so much for your insights tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rita.
Now, one of the good things out of this lockdown has been the rise of COVID comedians. They've been utilising platforms like TikTok and Instagram to poke fun at some of the absurdities that have become part of our daily lives. And I showed you earlier, that was John Bernard Carews, who used the platform to correctly predict the daily case numbers for New South Wales, almost half a day earlier than the Premier's announcement. And he did it quite a few times. He's got a very good leak in the department there. Another video that has gone viral is one holding a mirror up to the mixed messages the public has been receiving on the vaccine rollout.
Why are you being so selfish? How am I being selfish? Because if you get COVID, you can pass it on to me. But you've been vaccinated. Yeah, but I can still get it. So if I get vaccinated, I can still get it too. Yeah, but you should still get it because then you won't pass it on to me. But if I get vaccinated, I can still get it and still pass it on to you. Well, yeah, but you should still get it. But you can catch it off me whether I've been vaccinated or not. Yeah, but you should still get vaccinated. But why? Because it's the right thing to do. Who says? The people that make it.
The man starring in that video is Gabriel Rossi, and he joins me now from isolation. He's in lockdown in Melbourne. Gabriel, thank you for your time. This current craziness should be providing comics with just a wealth of material, but given that a lot of comics do lean fairly heavily to the left, are they too scared to tackle these sort of issues like lockdown and outdoor mask mandates and the confusing vaccination messages?
Oh, that's obvious, isn't it? I mean, I'm one of the only ones that's doing it in Melbourne, so, you know, and I'm called a nut job, so that's how it goes.
Well, what has been the impact on the comedic world? Because with these lockdowns and bars and venues where comedians ply their trade, you'd think it'd be fairly devastating for comedians who rely on those live shows.
Well, I was 9 months without a gig. So from March through to December, I didn't have any work whatsoever. I lived at home and did 4 months of homeschooling, and I learned that grade 2 maths is really difficult. And I also, yes, I know, I managed on JobKeeper, and look, life was okay, but it was very mentally taxing. We're one of the first industries to close and the last ones to open. So whenever there's a lockdown of any length, you can add a few weeks before and after as well.
And yet, like you said, particularly in Victoria, which has had the most lockdowns and one lasting 112 days, and the most ridiculous restrictions, whether it's been bans on fishing or playing golf or the curfew, yet the comedians, even the ones online on social media, have stayed away from it. Explain that to me. I just don't understand how such wonderful material that's so topical could be ignored by so many.
It's all about towing the line, I guess. I'm one of those people that doesn't really lean one way or the other politically, but at the end of the day, they all think I lean to the right because I'm critical of the Andrews government. But hey, if Dan Andrews was a Liberal, there's absolutely no difference to what I would have been saying in my criticisms of him. And at the end of the day, I wake up every day with 3 or 4 videos ready to go just because I've turned on the news and listened to the rubbish that's coming through. And it's just too easy. Like, I almost feel guilty. It's so easy.
It is easy. There's so much content there for you. Have you found a new audience? Have you had people who weren't familiar with your work find you because of COVID and your COVID comedy?
Well, this has been the biggest week I've ever had in terms of online following. So Saturday morning when I posted that video that you just showed, that video was was, it's hit nearly 7 million views, and I've had an additional 42,000 followers in 8 days. So, yeah, it's been quite incredible. And, yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that never heard of me before, but don't get me wrong, there's also a lot of haters too. A lot of people will be very, very critical of people like me that will call anything out. So, you know, what can you do?
Oh, we've seen that with business owners, poor business owners who are watching their life's work be destroyed by lockdown, and they say something about it and people absolutely come down on them like a ton of bricks. So, yeah, I mean, comedians are used to heckling, but tell me about some of the abuse you've copped, not because your comedy isn't funny, but because you're having a go at St. Dan.
Well, I mean, how many times do I need to be told I need to follow the science? I'm getting a bit sick of that. I'd like to think that I do follow the science, but just not one side of it. As far as the politics go, you know, I get told, why aren't you picking on the Liberal Party? Well, if they actually scroll through my TikTok, they'll find videos where I'm poking fun at ScoMo. And now I've even bought myself a Gladys wig because now she's another target. So I'm ready to go. I've even got my Dan Andrews ears ready to go whenever I make a video as him. So it's all good fun. And look, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm doing it to vent frustration in my situation, but I'm also doing it to entertain people. And I'm grateful that there's a lot of people that come on my videos and they comment saying that I mean, this is kind of crazy, but they actually tell me I'm helping them get through lockdown. Now, you know, look, I don't know how to take that, but at the end of the day, I know there are people out there that actually enjoy it, so I'm going to keep going.
Oh, absolutely. 7 million views in a very short time. That tells you people are enjoying it. Now, just lastly, we showed you that TikTok comedian who was correctly predicting New South Wales daily numbers. He got caught out, though. Today's numbers were a few out, so he's been, they've, I think, maybe found that leak. But tell us about that, because that's been quite a sensation. All the media, everybody has been going to his Instagram and Twitter and TikTok page to see what's going to be happening tomorrow.
Well, I've noticed with him, his following has gone up like 100,000 in the last couple of days. I've paid attention to that. I've got a bit of a conspiracy for you. I reckon that they changed the figures to call him out. That's what I reckon.
They've just held a few back just to make him look like it. Or maybe they had a suspicion who his leak was and they told that person the wrong figure just to see if that's what would be released. We'll see.
Nothing would surprise me anymore.
Nothing
would surprise me anymore. In this nuts world that we live in, nothing would surprise me. I have no absolute idea what's going to happen next, but nothing will surprise me ever again.
Gabrielle Rossi, it's giving you good content. We'll keep looking at your work. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now, after the break, political panel, and it's the best one of the week, Michael Kroger, Michael Costa. They're going to break down what's gone wrong with the Prime Minister's approval rating. It is plummeting. It's not looking pretty. And why was Katie Hopkins kicked out of the country? See you soon. Welcome back to the Bolt Report. I'm Rita Panahi, and joining me for the political panel tonight is former Victorian Liberal Party President Michael Kroger and former Labor Treasurer for New South Wales, Michael Costa. Gentlemen, let's start with Sydney and the decision by the Berejiklian government to ban construction work. Michael Kroger, even Victoria didn't dare do that. What do you make of this? This is a bold move. Courageous, some would say.
Courageous. Well, they didn't do that in Victoria because the building unions got onto Andrews early on and said, if you do that, you'll be in trouble. So he acceded to their demand. But it worked out well because most of the building work is either outdoors or it's in an airy situation and where there's indoors work, it's limited, etc., etc. So should they have closed down the buildings in New South Wales? No, they should not have. It was totally unnecessary and it's cost the New South Wales economy a fortune, Rita.
Well, it is. It's costing it an absolute fortune. And Gladys Berejiklian's crown as the gold standard Gladys, that has well and truly slipped. She has really upset everybody. The lockdown enthusiasts say she didn't lock down quick enough or hard enough. And the people who applauded her previously for having a proportionate response are saying she's lost the plot. She's jumped into the eradication cult along with Dan Andrews and every other state premier. So what do you make of Gladys Berejiklian and where she stands right now with her COVID response? Michael Kroger.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, look, I think the New South Wales government has been the gold standard all the way along. Obviously, there was a mistake in terms of how the virus got out through this driver. But again, I'd say that the Berejiklian government should do what it's done for the whole year, which is just close down those areas where the virus is and not follow an eradication strategy. I mean, this nonsense of eradication. I mean, in a year's time, Rita, when 80% are vaccinated, there is still coronavirus in Australia. Are we going to have these lockdowns? Of course we're not. We're going to have to live with the virus.
We may have them, Michael, because we seem to have absolutely zero tolerance for any virus in the community. You look at the UK, Freedom Day today, all remaining restrictions lifted. They had 50,000 cases in 24 hours. So they're vaccinated. They've got 65% of their adult population vaccinated, but you're still going to have cases with a high vaccination rate. You're still going to have hospitalisations. You're still going to have some deaths. Are we ready for that, or are we going to be locked down for the foreseeable future, which feels that way? It seems there's no politicians willing to be honest with the Australian public about what COVID normal looks like.
And I think that's the problem, that you've got a situation where the premiers are being seen to make very strong decisions. They've been in charge, but we're in this era where what they do is they scare the living daylights out of people. I mean, you know, Y2K bug years ago, then we're going to have a food shortage three decades ago. Now we've got global warming's going to kill everybody. And I saw that last interview you did where the psychologist was saying 18 months ago she had to deal with young kids who thought the planet was going to burn them to death. I mean, this whole cycle we're in of you know, we'll be ruined, you know, is something that politicians are doing these days, and it's utterly disgraceful. I mean, we didn't elect these chief health officers, and the premiers should be making some decisions about keeping the economy strong, keeping mental health at bay, and not panicking every time and closing down the whole state, because it is doing immense damage. And we're in a time now, Rita, where we should have balance. There should be balance, and we're not getting that. We're just getting this political extremism, and I think the electorate are getting sick and tired of it.
Increasingly, but there's also, Michael Costa, a lot of the electorate who are scared witless, and they want ever tougher restrictions because they think it's the only thing keeping them safe. Michael Costa, with the New South Wales decision to ban construction, it's going to cost the state upwards of $1 billion a week. Should we be seeing at least the medical advice behind that decision?
Well, Rita, there's no medical advice. The Premier up here has admitted, I don't know if you saw the report, that this didn't come from the Chief Medical Officer. It's a decision, a political decision to do this. And I think that's part of the problem here, where you've got politicians, you know, hiding behind medical advice when it suits them, and then making decisions independent of that advice. I think what we need is honesty here. And the reality is that until we get a vaccination rate of, you know, somewhere in this order of 60 or 70%, these lockdowns are going to be around for, you know, years to come. And I think we should focus on that. And the other problem we've got is there's no guarantee that even with those vaccination rates, the political will be there to open up. I mean, the government, and I think all governments, but particularly the federal government, need to say, look, when we get to 60%, 65%, whatever the figure is, we will ease up on lockdowns and allow the medical system to deal with the consequences, because we've, you know, insulated it against the pressure. But we don't have that. Therefore, you've got confusion, you've got, you know, haphazard measures, and you've got decisions that are being made not on medical grounds, on political grounds, but hidden behind the so-called medical advice.
It is, and you're right. The premiers, when it suits them, they relinquish all responsibility to the chief health officers, and then we'd actually never see the advice, and they act independently of the advice when they feel like it. Now, let's move on to the one of the big stories of the last 24 hours. Right-wing commentator and firebrand Katie Hopkins has been fined $1,000 and deported for breaching hotel quarantine rules. Not crystal clear what rules were broken, but Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews was scathing, saying it is despicable that anyone would behave in such a way that puts our health officials and community at risk. Michael Kroger, is this just the Morrison government giving in to cancel culture? What really happened here?
No, I don't think it is, Rita. I think it's someone coming from overseas who was treating our rules with contempt, to wit the rules about opening the door in your hotel, waiting until there's a sufficient period of time before food is delivered, etc., so there's no contact. And I think she was just flouting the rules and trying to make a fool of Australia. I mean, well, what a stupid thing to do from someone who's made some outrageous comments in the past, but who's made some quite sensible comments on other things, I might add. But to do this is just damage to her credibility here and internationally, completely unnecessarily. So why she did it, it's beyond me to work out, but I thought it was very foolish of her. And, you know, if people come in and treat out of rules like that, well, they should be deported, and good on the government for doing it, quite frankly.
Michael Costa, what do you make of this entire episode? To me, it's so bizarre on so many levels. Did she actually open the door before she was supposed to? Did she actually open the door naked, like she said in those videos? Was she just joking, or is this a serious assertion of what actually happened? It's hard to tell from what's been released.
That's absolutely right. When I first heard this, I thought it was a publicity stunt to promote the program she was going to be on. But I hear today that she's been fined $1,000. Now, how do you fine somebody $1,000 unless they've done something wrong? And surely claiming to do something without doing it wouldn't necessitate a $1,000 fine. I'd be surprised that even under these draconian measures that we've got, that you fine people for saying they're going to do something. So, you know, look, they need to be clear on what's happened here. I think it was a very silly thing from the beginning, but it does raise this issue. And I heard the New South Wales Health Minister going on about this, about the need to balance the economy and all the stars and Hollywood people that are out here bringing billions of dollars. However, there's a lot of Australians that are very angry about this because they see it as a double standard. And, you know, the worst part about this thing is what appears to be a double standard. Why is this person here in the first place? Even if she's right wing, left wing, you know, in between wing, it's hard to justify, given there are Australians around the world, you know, still not able to get back.
Oh, absolutely. Tens of thousands not able to get back, and it's going to be so much harder with our overseas arrival numbers cut in half. Now, let's move on to Newspoll. It's bad news for the Morrison government, and even you could argue worse for the Prime Minister personally, with his approval rating plummeting. Michael Costa, the coalition hasn't seen figures like this since the bushfires. Should they be worried?
Oh, look, I think they've got plenty of time to recover, so I wouldn't be panicking on these figures. But I have to say that more and more, you know, the future of the government, the coalition government, is going to be linked to people's perception about this COVID vaccine rollout. And I think they really need to change their messaging on this. And as I said a few minutes ago, they need to set a target, tell people that once we reach that target, you know, as the British have done, there's a Freedom Day, and the system can cope with any consequences, and, you know, people will get back to some sort of normality. So there is a way through it. I'm not sure that, you know, their message managers have actually understood that how significant it is to get a clear message out there, a set of goals, and then back it up with, you know, the vaccines and get people back to normality.
Michael Corrigan, where is this 4-point plan, and why is, again, Scott Morrison relinquishing power, it seems, to the Doherty Institute, waiting for the modelling, waiting for them to recommend the thresholds? Why isn't he looking at the experience overseas? Why isn't he, as Prime Minister, making some decisions, communicating them to the Australian people? Because obviously his current strategy isn't working. That popularity rate has dived.
Well, Rita, I think they've relied too much on medical advice and not made enough political decisions over the last year, as I said before. But you look at it this way, Scott Morrison's being penalised because he's seen to have been weak on issues. I mean, the premiers are seen to be strong because they are making the strong decisions about lockdowns. He's not doing that. He certainly copped a hit in relation to the vaccine rollout. We all know the reasons as to why it hasn't been as good as, you know, you'd like. But look, the election won't be until 2022. There's not going to be an election in 2021. And when it's in 2022, I expect the election not to be on the coronavirus because 80% will have been vaccinated. The rate of death will be almost zero. Cases will be minimal. People will have got sick of state governments locking them down. I expect Morrison government to be
Will we be open by 2022?
I'm sure we'll be open by then. But,
really?
You know, but on the other hand, you can
never
be certain about elections. I remember the 83 election where everyone expected Malcolm Fraser to turn it around because he'd won in 75 and 77 and 80. They always expected him to turn it around, and he didn't, and he lost. So no one in the Liberal Party should take anything for granted, and Albanese can certainly win.
Michael Kroger, Michael Costa, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Rita.
Thanks, Rita.
After the break, we'll cross to the UK to speak with Brendan O'Neill about the UK's Freedom Day. See you soon. You're watching The Bolt Report with Rita Panahi. Now, having declared July 19 to be Freedom Day, today Britain opened up and got back with life following many, many months behind closed doors. They had one of the world's longest and toughest lockdowns. The Brits have mounted a successful vaccine campaign, and now, despite daily case numbers in the tens of thousands, they'll go back to normal life. Joining me now from the Free London is editor of Spike Online, Brendan O'Neill. Oh, Brendan, Freedom Day over there. I'm in lockdown with 11 million other Australians. Tell us about the feeling. Is there jubilation or people scared about what's about to unfold?
It's a bit of a mix. I'm jubilant, that's for sure. There's no longer any social distancing in this country. You don't have to wear a mask except on the tube. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, still wants us to wear masks. He likes to exercise his power every now and then to show who's in charge of the city. He's a bit of a petty authoritarian in that sense. But for the most part, people are feeling pretty excited, pretty jubilant. Unfortunately, there is a noisy minority in the political class and the media elites who are spreading fear, who are saying we're opening too fast, and who seem to want us to stay in some kind of lockdown forever and ever. They have a lot of influence and a lot of clout, but my impression is that most people want to get back to normal.
And you have had case numbers skyrocket, 50,000 cases per day, and yet your hospitalisations and your death rate hasn't skyrocketed in a similar way. Tell us about the impact vaccines have had, and if people who are vaccinated now feel more comfortable being out in the community, even if they're not socially distancing.
Well, you know, in a sense, we're the complete opposite of Australia, because in Australia you have hardly any cases at all, and yet the various states are going in and out of lockdown all the time. Yeah. We have soaring numbers of cases right now. The Delta variant is spreading quite widely across the country, and yet we're opening up. And I think that's the right thing to do, because what the vaccination program has done very, very clearly, it has broken the link between infection and death, and it has severely weakened the link between infection and hospitalization. I mean, all the statistics show this. The virus is spreading like wildfire at the moment, but people are not dying or being hospitalized in anything like the same numbers as the first wave and the second wave. So the vaccine works, and you guys in Australia really need to push that out so that you can open up to the world again.
Oh, I fear when that will be. It may be a long time before you're holidaying in Australia, Brendan. Now, there was a very interesting report from The Telegraph in the UK on cloth masks. They said that cloth masks are essentially security blankets that do little to curb COVID spread, and basically saying that mask mandates have made absolutely no impact whatsoever. Again, this is expert opinion that sometimes we're not allowed to even talk about. Tell us about the attitude to masks, particularly wearing masks outdoors.
Yeah, very few people in this country wear masks outdoors. I was in Spain last year where you had to wear masks outdoors, and it was just completely insane. You know, the risk of infection outdoors, especially in a sunny climate, is next to nil. But people still had to wear masks in the UK for a very long time in shops, when you stand up in a pub, on tubes and buses and trains and so on. So we've been wearing them a long time, and now that's changed. Now the guidance is that you should carry on wearing them, but it's up to the individual. And my feeling is a lot of individuals will want to rip them off. But this new survey study suggesting that they are comfort blankets and that some masks don't offer that much protection. It's very, very interesting. I think you're right. The problem with these kinds of issues is that discussion of them is so often frowned upon. Anyone who raises questions about masks or any other restrictive activity is instantly denounced as a COVID denier and someone who wants our grandparents to die, and all these other demonization terms are thrown at people. I think what's going to happen with masks now is they're going to become a symbol in the culture war. And I think the regressive woke left in the culture war is going to start wearing masks to signify how superior they are to the rest of us. That's what's happening in the UK. Lots of those kinds of people are saying, well, we're going to carry on wearing them because we're good, caring people. So they're going to become very symbolic, I think.
Yeah, and that's certainly happening in parts of the US as well. Now, we saw some incredible footage out of London of just massive lines of people waiting to get into nightclubs and dance clubs. I think we can roll some of that vision because they've been starved of that. Look at that. This is middle of the night, just waiting for that deadline to pass and to be allowed inside to dance the night away. Tell us about the impact this lockdown has had on young people, because you can see there they're mainly young people and they've really paid quite a high price as they have in Australia to keep other segments of the population safe.
That's right. They've paid an incredibly high price in terms of education. School kids' education has been suspended in many cases. Students at university are very rarely having face-to-face lectures. They're doing most stuff online. They're not getting the social life or the sense of connection they once would have got. And young people's social life more broadly has been put on hold for more than a year. So nightclubs in this country have not been open once since the first lockdown in March 2020. They've been closed the whole time. And those images you showed there, that was young people queuing up just before midnight last night, because midnight was the moment at which Freedom Day starts and when nightclubs could open. So lots of nightclubs opened at midnight and they all had a wild time. I'm too old to go clubbing these days. It's in my ancient history, but I was really thrilled to see those kinds of images and to see young people grabbing freedom and wanting to get back to that kind of free life.
And just lastly, I've got to ask you about what's happening in France, because we are seeing mass protests. We're seeing an uprising from elements of the left and the right against Macron and some of his vaccination passport orders. What are your feelings about what's happening in France?
I think President Macron has gone mad. I think if you look at his vaccine passport idea, it is absolutely crazy. He wants to have a severe system whereby if you aren't double vaccinated, then you basically are no longer a free citizen. For example, if you go into a pub or a restaurant without a vaccine passport, you could be jailed. You could be literally sent to prison. So this is really terrible stuff. And also, let's not forget that President Macron spread fear about the AstraZeneca vaccine a few months ago. Lots of European leaders did, largely just to get one over on Brexit Britain, essentially. So he spread fear about the vaccine initially. Now he's going to punish his citizens if they don't get the vaccine. Really a terrible system. I'm delighted to see people protesting. The way to encourage people to get the vaccination is through persuasion, not through authoritarianism, and our leaders should remember that.
Absolutely. Persuasion, not coercion. Brendan O'Neill, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Rita.
Now, after the break, I'm going to look at John Hewson and his little bit of virtue signalling coming back to haunt him. See you soon. Welcome back. Now, one last thing. The phrase hoist with his own petard has never been more apt than this bit of deliciousness. Former Liberal Party leader John Hewson wrote not too long ago, "Adopt quotas for female MPs or face extinction." On the weekend, he was made extinct from the 9 Papers opinion pages. The editor of the Sydney Morning Herald tweeted this in response to Hewson's whinging about being sacked. She wrote, "Thank you for your contributions to debate over a number of years, John. Our readers have valued your insights. However, we are committed to refreshing and diversifying our rotation of columnists, especially in line with our pledge for 50-50 gender balance." Oh dear, that's what he wanted. He said he wrote it himself in the 9 Papers, and now the 9 Papers listen to him. You can't blame them. Now, thank you for joining me tonight. I'll be filling in for Andrew all this week. But for now, stay with Sky News Australia. The legendary Alan Jones is up next.